There is a particular kind of company that almost never explains itself to the public. Not because it is secret in the traditional sense, but because public understanding is simply not required for it to function. You don't buy its products. You don't install its software. You don't interact with its interface. And yet, its systems are embedded inside governments, military planning rooms, intelligence agencies, border control operations, financial institutions, and large-scale logistics networks. Most people have heard the names at least once. Very few can describe, concretely, what these companies actually do. This confusion is often dismissed as technical complexity. The assumption is that the work is too abstract or too specialized to explain clearly. But that explanation misses something important. These companies are not difficult to understand because they are complex. They are difficult to understand because their product is not an outcome, but a way of interpreting reality. They do not provide answers. They provide environments in which certain answers become easier to justify than others. To understand why this matters, it helps to look at how decisions are actually made inside large institutions. Modern organizations are not limited by a lack of information. They are overwhelmed by it. Intelligence agencies receive constant streams of satellite imagery, intercepted communications, human reports, and sensor data. Financial institutions track millions of transactions, market movements, and risk indicators in real time. Border agencies process travel records, behavioral signals, biometric data, and watch lists simultaneously. No human group can meaningfully interpret all of this directly. So institutions rely on systems that reduce reality. Not by hiding information, but by structuring attention. This is the core function of these companies. They ingest massive, disconnected data streams and reorganize them into unified operational pictures. Dashboards, maps, timelines, risk scores. These interfaces feel neutral. They look technical. They appear objective. But every visualization already contains judgment. What is highlighted? What is downgraded? What is treated as noise? These choices shape how situations are understood before anyone makes a decision. One of the clearest examples of this dynamic comes from modern military operations. During counterinsurgency campaigns in the Middle East, intelligence analysts stopped working with isolated reports. Instead, they used fused data environments that combined drone footage, intercepted communications, geolocation data, and human intelligence into a single interface. Targets were not identified by one source alone. They emerged as patterns across multiple signals. When a location was flagged as significant, that flag was not a fact. It was the outcome of weighting decisions embedded in the system. Which signals were considered reliable? Which correlations mattered? Which anomalies were ignored? The analyst did not see this entire chain. They saw the result. And because the result appeared as a technical output, it carried authority. This dynamic played a role in several documented cases where strikes were authorized based on pattern recognition rather than direct identification. Later investigations often found that no single person had made a clear error. The system did not order the strike. A human did. But the system shaped what the human believed was reasonable. A similar mechanism appears in law enforcement and predictive policing. In multiple U.S. cities, analytical platforms were introduced to identify individuals or neighborhoods deemed high risk. These systems analyzed historical arrest data, social networks, and behavioral patterns. On paper, the systems did not accuse anyone of a crime. They merely assigned risk scores. In practice, those scores influenced patrol patterns, surveillance intensity, and stop rates. People found themselves repeatedly questioned or monitored not because of specific actions, but because the system classified them as statistically relevant. When challenged, agencies pointed out that officers still made the final decisions. That was true. But the framework defining suspicion had already been constructed. Financial institutions offer another concrete example. Before the 2008 financial crisis, many large banks relied on integrated risk platforms that aggregated exposure across markets and asset classes. These systems did not predict the collapse. They adjusted thresholds. As indicators crossed certain levels, automated responses followed. Positions were reduced. Liquidity tightened. Confidence eroded. No single executive decided to trigger a systemic panic. The panic emerged from thousands of institutions reacting to the same interpreted signals. After the crisis, similar systems became even more central. Today, when enough indicators align, actions are taken automatically long before any public explanation exists. Again, responsibility is distributed. No one feels directly accountable for the outcome. Border control systems operate under the same logic. In several countries, travelers are assessed using automated risk profiling long before they reach a checkpoint. The analysis reveals critical insights that can enhance security measures effectively. This comprehensive approach ultimately strengthens our ability to identify potential threats before they escalate. By integrating various layers of information, we create a robust framework designed to protect and serve the traveling public efficiently. The future of air travel security is here, and it is vigilant and proactive. Most people never notice this process. But for those flagged, the consequences are immediate. Secondary screening. Questioning. Delays. The officer at the border enforces the result. But the classification occurred elsewhere, inside a system they did not design. This is why these companies resist simple explanations. They do not sell surveillance. They do not sell control. They sell coordination at scale. Once embedded, their systems become infrastructural. Meetings begin with dashboards. Briefings start with visualizations. Decisions reference system outputs rather than raw data. At that point, removing the system feels risky. Not because it is perfect, but because it has become the shared reference reality. Returning to fragmented information feels like operating blind. This creates a form of power that does not rely on secrecy. Many of these systems are publicly known. Their contracts are reported. Their existence is documented. What remains unclear is not that they exist, but how deeply they shape interpretation. Specifically, where interpretation ends and decision-making begins. As systems grow more complex, that boundary becomes harder to identify. Simplification is necessary to act at scale. But simplification always reflects priorities. And priorities shape outcomes. This is why these companies rarely explain themselves. Explanation implies limits. Clear definitions. Fixed responsibilities. Their value lies in adaptability. The same analytical framework can be applied to warfare, crime prevention, migration, supply chains, or financial risk. Different domains. Same logic. Interpret reality in a way that allows institutions to act quickly. Once interpretation itself becomes infrastructure, power no longer needs to announce itself. It does not need public trust. It does not need public understanding. It only needs institutional reliance. Most people will never interact with these systems directly. But they will live inside the outcomes. Policies that feel technical rather than political. Decisions that appear inevitable rather than chosen. Changes that arrive without clear authorship. The unsettling aspect is not conspiracy. It is normalization. The normalization of decision-making that happens one layer removed from accountability. These companies do not decide the future. They decide which version of reality becomes actionable. And when that function becomes invisible, the most influential forces no longer look like actors at all. They blend seamlessly with the environment. In reality, they serve a far greater purpose than mere support. These structures are the vein and arteries of this bustling city, quietly sustaining the rhythm of life while remaining almost invisible to the untrained eye. Their functionality offers a glimpse into a coordinated existence.